Hey, Joe Brown here. Welcome back to A Lighter Shade of Brown. Today we're going to cover ambulance-chasing lawyers, law firms and lawyers who don't own the law firm that they work for or they advertise for, but rather equity. Maybe give you a little fantasy football advice because football is about to take off. Stay tuned and enjoy the episode. You should leave that as the entrance. And I forget what the rest part is. I'm a personal injury lawyer. People call us ambulance chasers. I mean, complete bullshit, painful. It's the ultimate slight to good lawyers. So the term ambulance chaser, seems to, people were back in the day hanging out in hospitals, trying to get clients. You've probably seen that in Better Call Saul or maybe some other shows where people are out there trying to get clients unscrupulously. State bars came down on that a long time ago. You can't go after clients in that manner. You can't try to recruit clients in that manner. They have to contact you first, or you have to have some kind of relationship with them. But the whole thing is, it's really a lot of other lawyers who don't like advertising lawyers, and that's what they call us, ambulance chasers. They don't like lawyers that spend money marketing on TV. They think it's beneath the profession or not what we should be doing as lawyers. But the truth is, just like any other business, we need to get to our clients. And our clients are the average person. They're not businesses. They're not things like that. And we need to make sure we can put out who we are and why we're better than somebody else and why they may want to choose us if they're in an accident. And the best way to do that is marketing and marketing to the masses. Ivory tower lawyers, they call them, who are these big firms that are, based in New York, whatever else. Yeah, they go to dinners and they take people out to lavish dinners or, go to the club and buy bottle service, all those things. That's their marketing. And it's just different than our marketing. Now, do some lawyers take it to an extreme and have really, frankly, shitty ads? Yes. Are they tacky? Yes. We really don't do that. We try to stay professional. We like to keep our ads on point. But you've got some other morons, and some might say one starts with Roe and the other one ends with Lerner, who actually have a commercial where they chased an ambulance. Ridiculous. And it's not good for the profession, and it's not who we are. But good lawyers don't market that way. And if you're a legitimate lawyer, frankly, I don't think you're out there with a jingle. You're not out there, changing a rap song into a jingle or, doing these green screen commercials where you're chasing ambulances or other things like that. I think a good lawyer puts out who they are, what they're about, and what they can do for you. I mean, we are Accident Law Group, says in our name what we do. I am a former insurance adjuster. I know what the insurance company's going to do before they do it. We litigate cases. That's the other thing you got to look at. Do these law firms litigate cases? I don't want to take shots at other firms, but the biggest firms in this town do not have litigators. The biggest firm in here, hey girl, doesn't have one litigator on staff. So you want to hire that or do you want a good recovery? And that's really what you got to look at. And that's what we do. Individualize the case to the client, to the insurance company, because you approach each insurance company different. You approach each policy different. Is it a commercial policy? Is it a regular normal person's policy? Is it somebody who has an uninsured motorist claim? Those are all different claims and all approached differently. And having a good lawyer who understands the differences and how you prepare each case to maximize that settlement and benefit your client the most, that's what you're hoping to get. And there are good lawyers in personal injury. And those good lawyers, like myself, are offended when we're called ambulance chasers. So trust me, it makes me want to punch you in the face. But that's just my hot take on ambulance chasing and, origins of and why it's still perpetuated by several law firms who put out, frankly, poor, shitty marketing to really get the low-hanging fruit of people who think they were, in an accident looking for a check. One of the other things you got to look at now is all of a sudden law firms are no longer owned by lawyers. Very common here in Arizona, unfortunately. And other law firms who have been owned by lawyers now are selling their law firm or selling a majority of their law firm to equity people in other states or equity parties who now control Listen, rumor is Erner and Rowe sold 60% to not a law firm, but to some kind of equity partnership. So now they don't control their law firm. I've heard same thing over at Rafi, that they've got some kind of deal out there that they put all over the news where they got $185 million. I don't know if that's an equity purchase or not, but that does question who controls the law firm. Esquire is not a law firm owned by a lawyer. That's a law firm that's owned by an equity group. There are several of those. I've heard rumors that Morgan & Morgan's trying to sell equity shares to theirs, and I've seen that all over the news. So who are you hiring? I mean, that's what makes us different. You're hiring Joe Brown and Accent Law Group because that's who we are and that's who I am. But not all law firms are that way. And you want to really do some research, because are they controlled by somebody who's doing bean counting in New York who says, hey, by the way, you need to settle X number of cases for X amount to us make X profit? Are you controlled by a lawyer who's actually looking at the best interest of your case, and every case as an individual, not every case as a conglomerate group of, frankly, future money, or some people approach this as an annuity. It's something they're going to get paid monthly on for the rest of their life, because that's how they see personal injury. And when you're looking at it like that, instead of case by case, you're not doing what's best for the client, in my opinion. You're doing what's best for your pocketbook. And I always say around here, and you've probably heard me say this before on the podcast, we do what's right for the case. The money will take care of itself. Sometimes you lose money on a case. Sometimes you don't. But if you do what's right, at the end, I believe we will be just fine, and things will take care of themselves financially. And I've lived by that for all 10 plus years at ALG, and we've done just fine. I think I'm pretty happy with where we're at, and I'm really happy with the product that we give our clients, especially compared to most of those other firms you see on TV. So, hey, there's my rant on non-lawyers running firms or owning firms, or equity partners who are not lawyers, or equity coming into the space of personal injury to buy law firms to manage with the idea and goal of nothing more than profits, as opposed to the reason I became a lawyer, which is to help people get taken care of and to fight the insurance company, because let's be honest, they fuck you every chance they can, and you need to hire somebody who can fuck them back harder. NFL is back. Training camps are open. I mean, this is my favorite time of year. I love football. I'm a football guy. You know what? If I was a little bit bigger, that's probably what I would have done. That would have been my goal as a kid growing up. All I wanted to do was play professional football. I just love hitting people. I don't know what it is. Now I get to do it more in the business world, but football's back. I think the Rams are going to be amazing, but they still got Seattle. I mean, Seattle's, they're returning, and they're studs. So it's really, and then you got the Niners. You know what? Speaking of Niners, I do love and respect Shanahan for coming out and saying, hey, I caused that car accident. You don't see people do it. I guarantee you his insurance company called him and chewed him out and threatened to pull coverage as a result of that interview, because the police report was in his favor. And they wanted to argue that he was not to blame. But Shanahan, being a stand-up guy, says, hey, that kid did nothing wrong. I caused the accident. Stop blaming him. You know what? And that is legit. And I wish that happened more in life. And I applaud him as an individual. And it says a lot about his character that he would do stuff like that. So you know what? Football. I mean, so many different things. I believe from playing in high school and whatever else, football is really what prepares you best for life, because there's so many setbacks that happen when you're learning, when you're playing, when you're in practice or even in a game, that you take every setback and you learn from it. I've learned more from my mistakes in life than I have from my successes. And I think I get that all the way back to playing sports, because as an athlete, you're learning on the mistakes that you make, not on the successes. And I think that's what's great about sports. I think nothing epitomizes that more than NFL football. I love fantasy football. I mean, let me just say, fantasy football is my thing. That's the other thing that comes back. I will have my laptop up. I've got like 4 different teams. We have a huge draft at my house with a bunch of buddies that we've been dating back to, I don't know, like the early 2000s. So it is, fantasy football is a blast for me. So I sit there and, you get the players from each team. You're working the stats. I mean, it brings two things together that I love the most. Math, because I love math. I'm kind of a math guy, and I love football. So you got the two together, and you're over there working statistics and averages and all those things when you're making the draft. There's nothing better. I put together my own draft sheets. I don't just go off the list from ESPN. I'll put together my own list. I'll cross people off that they have. I'll move them up and down from what they do. So yes, I love fantasy football. In fact, last year the first time I got into an auction league, which was completely new to me, and I love that. I really enjoy that because there's so much strategy into, how much do you pay for a player? Is this player worth it? Even though if it's the number one player, do you want to spend that much money? Because now you just lost your salary. Now you got a salary cap going. And, sometimes maybe 3 good players is better than one, superstar. And you got to make those decisions. And I enjoyed that and all the strategy that goes into that. And I think that's what fantasy football, I think that's why I love fantasy football so much, is it really is a strategy and a math, averages and looking at matchups and using your knowledge of the sport along with what you guesstimate some stud athlete's going to do for you. It is a blast. And I will tell you, last year I did have the Cardinals tight end. And this year, if I can get him again, I'll take him. So he's a stud. That is the one Cardinal player I would take. Well, the thing about McBride and why he does so well is because he's a tight end. And the Cardinals, they don't have my boy Will Hernandez anymore. And their offensive line, traditionally hasn't been able to block a paper back. So you got to get rid of the ball here quick. And since you got to get rid of it quick, who's the first person you're going to throw to? The first closest person is the tight end. And that makes sense. I mean, and I don't think they've changed anything. That offensive line hasn't, developed to a level where I think they're studs. So your quick outlet pass to McBride is just there. And if you're in a PPR where you get a point per reception, there's 1 point. And that's where he kills it. And that's why he killed it for me, is because he had, tons of catches. I think the most ever last year for a tight end. I think it was 129. I mean, that's just sick. So, and then not like he had huge yardage totals, but he did have nice yardage totals. It wasn't like it was short. But you know what? You get a lot of 7-8 yard passes, and the guy's a beast, and he's strong as hell. And I mean, I've talked to him. I actually have played golf with him. I've bet a UFC fight sitting next to him. I mean, the guy's strong as fuck. And you know what? He breaks a tackle, boom. He's down the middle. He's gone 15, 20 yards. And that's the benefit. And when you have a team that's struggling offensively, they have to do things quick. They got to do the quick hitters. They got to do those things. And that really goes well to him. I mean, they got Harrison out there who's underutilized, but frankly, they just don't have enough time to get him the ball. And that's the problem that the Cardinals have, is that, the Cardinals have a lot of problems, and they've always had a lot of problems because, and it starts at ownership. And that's, Bidwell actually went to my law school. He was a few years ahead of me, but that family, it's about profit, not about doing what's right for the team, in my opinion. And they're always looking at the bottom line instead of looking at what we need to do. They'll make poor decisions, like Kyler Murray, give him $100 million because they think he'll put people in the stands because they want to make money. Well, let's not do that. Let's do what's best for the team. I mean, you drafted Love. I think he's a stud. But a first-round draft pick on a running back? I mean, a top 5 running back or pick? I don't know that that's the best thing. You could have traded down and maybe got 2 first-rounders or 3, or 2 first-rounders and 2 second-rounders. I mean, who knows? You have so many needs. Why we go and get a running back, which I don't know that was the top of the need. I mean, you got Connor coming back. He can play still. We've got some other players on the team. You went and traded and got another running back from Atlanta. That guy's not bad. I mean, so do we need to spend a top 5 pick there? Or, those are the type of decisions. I think they put a top 5 pick because he is a draw. And they want people to come and see because they want people in the stands, and they want to sell food and beverage, and they want to sell tickets because that's how they make money. But you know what? No one's ever explained to them that if they win games, those things take care of yourself. And if you do what's right, people will be in there. But you know what? They got McBride sewed up. Smart move. Best player on the team. And being a Cowboy fan, sometimes I do succumb to picking a couple of Cowboys. I am not a Dak fan, but I am a Dak fantasy football fan because he puts up numbers. Do I think he can win us a game when he needs to? No. Do I think he can get me 300 yards and 3 touchdowns? Hell yes. And you know what? When I'm trying to win money, 300 yards and 3 touchdowns gets me paid. That's where it comes in. So you know what? That's it. Find myself rooting for players that I may not traditionally like, even teams I may not traditionally like. We've got the Madden jinx. We got Caleb Williams. You know what? I wouldn't draft him anyway. So, but I do sometimes stay away from whoever's on the cover just out of concern because there's been too many people who come down. Now, how many people got rated 99? I mean, we've got some studs there. Jamar Chase. Okay, I'm in a fantasy league where we get keepers. I have Jamar Chase. I have kept him. I will continue to keep him. He's a beast. Josh Allen, beast. Love him. Matthew Stafford, also a beast. Now you got Miles over with Stafford at the Rams. That's beast. McBride, he may be actually another keeper in one of my leagues. I have 2 leagues that I have keepers, and I have McBride in one of those leagues. It's going to be tough to give him up. The guy's a beast. He's a stud. So I think I only get to keep 1, and I think I have Chase and McBride in the same league. So I don't know who I keep. That's going to be tough. So those are things that do people look at? I mean, I look at the Madden a little bit. I always look at the Madden cover. I mean, I want to know who's on the Madden cover because that jinx is legit, and I think I've been bitten more than once by that jinx. I can't remember who it was, but it was probably about 10 or 15 years ago. Someone I had drafted in the first round, and he went down in the first couple of weeks, just like many of them do. And it was rough. Then you're scrambling, and you're not, if your top 3 pick goes down in the first couple of weeks, you are not likely to make, the playoffs or at least a deep run. Sorry, you got a text message from a buddy whose daughter just got rear-ended in an accident. So giving him advice. First question asked, not a lot of damage. Rear-ended, should we still call the police? The answer is yes, always call the police because they're going to argue some bullshit later that you cut them off or anything like that. And then they're going to try to not accept liability or blame for the accident. And even though it looks like there's not a lot of damage, doesn't mean there's not a lot of damage. Once you pull that bumper off, there could be substantial damage underneath. My brother's wife was in an accident. I looked at the pictures. I'm like, hey, this isn't that bad. We ripped off the bumper. Turns out there was damage to the reinforcements. The frame had damage. It ended up being a total loss for over $20,000. But looking at it, you thought it was a scuff on the bunker. So those are things you got to understand and take into consideration, which is why treat every case like it's going to be a substantial, big case that you're going to need all the documentation because you can't recreate it later. So go from there. Now, we can transition back. I don't jump teams, and let's talk about the team jumper. We finally found a place for LeBron. He's on the 76ers. Thank God. He's out of LA. Hey, here's a news flash, 76ers. If you send over a coupon for a buy one, get one free at Chick-fil-A, we'll send Bronny over too, because I don't think he's worth much more than that. But hey, that's just my personal opinion. Now the Lakers have to do a good job, and they need to start rebuilding because I don't know what's going on there. We all of a sudden we look like we're the 1980s Celtics, and I'm not sure we're going to have the same success because I didn't see Larry Bird on that team. Luka's going to have to step up and show what he can do. We need to get some more talent around them, and maybe a stud point guard would be solid. I don't know. 76ers, good luck. I thought you had a solid team. Embiid, if he stays healthy, I mean, that's a big if. I thought with Jaylen Brown was a great duo, and I thought that they could really make some noise. You just added LeBron James, who's going to dribble the ball for 20 seconds and then throw up some bullshit three-pointer. So it's going to change your complete offense, and I don't think he's ready to take a back seat to anyone, and I think Jaylen Brown really needs to run that team from a point guard's perspective. So maybe that's not a good fit anymore. Embiid can't stay healthy. I don't know. Maybe now that he's around, some superstars, he can figure out how to be a superstar. But I felt like the Celtics lost a player with Jaylen Brown. I felt like the 76ers gained a stud, and then they just took 2 steps back when they brought on LeBron. But hey, that's just me as a anti-LeBron guy. And the good news is the Lakers no longer have him. I will take mediocre Laker and with no LeBron versus, being the 8th seed and out in the first round with LeBron. Let me just say that. So that's my take on the LeBron finally landing in the 76ers. Good luck, 76ers.